I'm starting to roll. And before we start the interview, today is the 14th of December, 2014.
We'll make it by Christmas.
We'll make it by... We're in Kfar Shmaryahu.
That's right.
At David Teperson's house. And this is our first interview of a few probably, but we'll see how things go. And basically I want you to tell me your name, when you were born, and where you were born.
I was born in Cape Town on the 6th of October, 1926. 1926, I was the third child. I have a brother that's 5 years older, and I have a sister that's 10 years older. She's passed away already. But my brother's still alive in South Africa.
And can you tell me a little bit about your background? Let's go back a generation to your parents.
My parents are Lithuanian. My mother came to South Africa as a young girl, as a baby, and she lived in Oudtshoorn, which was a very Jewish community, and most of the people there were my relatives, because in those days, when they came from Lithuania, one relative brought the other.
Do you know where in Lithuania your mother was from?
No.
Do you know what
my father...
Wait, we'll get to your father in a sec. Do you know your mother's maiden name?
Kussel.
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 Kussel. And her first name was?
Edith.
Edith.
My daughter's named after her.
Okay. And she is from Lithuania, and she came to South Africa as a
little girl.
As a little girl. Okay. So we're talking about 1890s?
Around the turn of the century.
Turn of the century. 21st century. Okay. And
you know, I've got postcards in Oudtshoorn from she was a teenage. Her postcards, 1908. What's nice about these postcards? In those days, today little girls speak to each other on the phone. In those days they sent postcards.
Sure.
So I got postcards from my mother's days where you see a girl sitting on a soldier's lap, and my mother said, "Isn't this interesting? Maybe we can do it."
And tell me, your father, where was he from? And
Lithuania.
Also?
Yes. 99% of all the Jews in South Africa were Lithuanian.
Yeah. Do you know why that is?
Huh?
Do you know why?
Well, one brought the other.
But why Lithuania? Like, why?
Because the Lithuanian Jews immigrated the first. So the first one that comes, he comes out, they pay for him, and he pays for the next one. It was like bringing the family out.
Yeah.
They brought the whole families out. I mean, I had such a lot of...
But why?
I've discovered now, I've got a woman here. My grandmother, her grandmother, the same person. I just discovered it now. She was married to Kunda, and her grandmother, my grandmother, the same person. Her father was part of the family.
What was your father's first name?
Abe.
Abe? As
Abe.
Abraham. Abraham Teperson. Mm-hmm. And that was the name in Lithuania too, Teperson.
Yes.
How old was he when he came to South Africa?
He came with his brothers. They brought the whole family. There were 8 brothers and sisters. And the brothers brought out all the sisters and the brother-in-laws. They brought them all out. They came and worked here all around 1900. A little bit longer, a little bit...
And you don't know where in Lithuania he's from, your father?
My brother might know.
Okay. In your house, when you're growing up, we're going to get to what your parents did and everything. What was the language you spoke with your parents?
English.
No Yiddish.
I learned Yiddish by listening to them. They'd speak Yiddish when they didn't want me to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And by speaking Dutch, it was easier for me to learn Yiddish too, because Dutch, German, and I grew up part of my time. I farmed in Southwest Africa, German. So I grew up with the German and the Dutch,
Okay, well,
which are very interlocked.
right.
So it
But
was
that's Afrikaans, no?
Afrikaans is,
Something else.
yeah, Afrikaans is Afrikaans. That's what I grew up with. I
So
went to Afrikaans school. I didn't go to English school.
now, what kind of house would you describe that you grew up in? Did you grow up in an upper middle class, upper class?
I didn't
lower
grow up
mid-
in a house.
I understand.
I grew up at boarding school
in boarding schools.
because my parents had hotels. They ran hotels and they couldn't keep me there because the hotels had bars, zonot, galore, and that was their main business.
Prostitutes.
Their liquor was their main business. Liquor was the big business in hotels. Not the hotel, the sleeping was nothing.
So your parents were both business people?
My parents ran the hotels.
How many hotels did they have?
Well, in Johannesburg, we had one hotel. My mother and father ran it.
But they owned
Then we moved to the country. My mother went to Springbok and ran the Springbok Hotel, and my father went to Garrish and ran the Garrish Hotel, 100 miles difference. So we had two hotels. My father ran one. He was out of the army then. World War II he joined.
Wait, World War One.
World War II, he joined the gang.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a sec. So you have an older sister who's 10 years older than you. You have a brother who's 5 years older than you, and you are the baby. You're the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do I look like a baby?
no, but you're the baby. Like I'm also, I'll always be the baby of my family. I'm the youngest out of 4 children.
I'll always be the baby too, don't worry.
Yeah, so it's something that it's a title that sticks with you. So, tell me. I want to ask you. So your family is upper middle class. They're
I don't know what upper middle class is.
they're successful business people. They're not wealthy rich, but they're well
No,
off.
they're
They can
comfortable.
send you to a boarding school.
Of course.
It's not
They
cheap.
had to send me to boarding school because they couldn't keep me in the hotel.
Right. It wasn't very educational.
No, they sent me to my uncle afterwards. They
Okay.
sent me to 1900.
So did you grow up with any parent figures around you at all?
No parents. I grew up at boarding schools and my uncles. They sent me to my uncle's farm, which is in Vicksburg. This was going back 1900.
His farm.
The farm. And my one uncle was on the farm, and another uncle was in town, had a shop. I stayed with him. My mother paid to keep me out of the hotel. The hotel was full of zonot and liquor, so it was a good business, but not for children.
How old are you when you are separated from your parents?
From the age of 6.
Okay, so let's focus on from when you were born to 6. Tell me right now, what is one of your first memories as a child?
I remember the zonot.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, why not? I used to watch them fuck up against the wall. I got educated. But besides that,
Your father, your mother, your brother.
my father and mother were running the business. They were too busy for me. I had a Zulu boy that brought me up. His name was Pikanin.
You had a what?
A Zulu boy. He was a Zulu,
Sure.
a big boy, and he was the one that brought me up. He's the one that washed me, put me to bed.
How old was he?
He was a Zulu of 30-some.
In his 30s.
Yes, he was the houseboy,
Okay.
but he comes from a Zulu tribe.
Sure.
And he was wounded twice with assegais. He taught me to fight sticks.
He was blind?
Huh?
He was-
Taught me to fight stick fights.
Stick fights.
The Zulus always carried a stick. I always carried the stick too. Not today, I use it like this. But they taught me to fight, stick fight, which is, I discovered afterwards, the Zulu stick fight is exactly the same as the Romans in 2,000 years ago. Nothing's changed.
Do you remember this guy's name?
Yes, Pikanin. Pikanin.
That was his name?
You know what Pikanin is?
No.
Little boy. A little boy is called Pikanin.
So why did they call him little boy?
Because he was a big man like me.
Gotcha. So he was basically your first...
He was my first and looked after me. And besides boarding school, it was him.
Well, before you're still under 6 now. You haven't gone to boarding school yet. So he raised you.
Yeah, more than my parents.
More than your parents.
Because my parents didn't see me. They were running the pub.
And what about your brothers and sisters? Do you have any relations with them at this age?
Very little.
Very little.
Because my mother was in the business with liquor.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
My mother was in business with liquor, and he couldn't keep a child there. So they sent me to my uncle back. This is where I told you when I was about 6 years old, I went to my uncle's on the farm.
Yeah.
I was going back to 2000. And there, it was horse and carts, oxen. He plowed all his lands with oxen, teams of oxen wagons. That's what I grew up with. You know what oxen wagons were? In America, they used horses.
Uh-huh.
We used oxen.
Okay.
We'd plow all our lands with oxen.
Okay.
And you'd bring the wheat in with oxen, and you take your maize and your wheat that you produced, oxen cart to the siding to be shipped. Everything was oxen. And you had the little boy leading the 12 or 14 or 18 oxen. They used to plow. My uncle plowed everything with oxen. What's with everything? Then he fattened up and sold them at meat. So he says, you never lost anything. I take a tractor, it cost me a fortune of money to keep. Oxen, return everything.
Do you remember anything? I want to get to, this is still a little bit before you were sent off to boarding school. Were your brother and sister also sent off to boarding school? So your parents literally had no time for you guys. They were busy. Not out of choice, but out of duty.
Business. They couldn't keep us there with a pub.
Yeah.
It was a good business to go here to come drink.
Yeah.
So they sent us to boarding schools,
Yeah.
which in those days was perfectly normal.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. What is the first Jewish memory that you have? If it's a holiday or a synagogue?
The holidays. My father was very proud Jew.
Very what?
Proud. So was my mother. No one said bloody Jew to my father. He was a fighting man. I've seen my father hit men through the door.
Really?
When they called him, my mother bloody Jewess. And he taught me when I was young, anyone calls you bloody Jew, you hit first, talk later. And he taught me to hit not like this. You throw your shoulder. He says, you're 100 kilos. You put that 100 kilos behind it. If you do this, you're just pushing him. But if you put you swing your whole body, he taught me that as a youngster. You hit him with your body. And I became very strong. When I was 15, I hung a teacher up on the wall. He called me bloody Jew, so I picked him up and hung him.
Your teacher called you a bloody Jew?
Called me a bloody Jew.
Why? Do you remember?
Just being Jewish is enough to be among the goyim.
So, but do you remember holidays, Yom Kippur, Passover, Rosh Hashanah?
I kept all the holidays where I could. I was at boarding school afterwards, and when I was at boarding school, I went to Klein William Agriculture School. There was a Jew, Ginsberg, that had a shop there. He took me to the Jewish community in another city for holidays because I couldn't go home to Springbok. Springbok was too far.
Springbok, isn't that the name of the rugby team?
That's also, the national rugby team is called Springbok.
Right.
Springbok is the national The Springbok is the national South African. It's a national anthem. Like the Kiwis have got that little bird, we got Springbok.
Hold on a second. Just a second. I want to just put on the light here.
Yes?
Yeah.
Twist it, twist it. Twist it.
There we go.
More.
That's good. Okay. Now, see? Yeah. So, when you're 6 years old, you're sent off to boarding school.
I was 6 years old. I was sent to my uncle. Not to boarding school, it's the same as boarding school. My one uncle had a shop in a place called Vicksburg, and my other uncle had a farm 10 miles out, a big farm, and he was there from before the Boer War. And so I lived between my uncle had my one uncle had a son.
Your cousin?
A cousin. And we grew up together.
Who was his name?
Georgie.
Georgie? Your cousin's name is Georgie?
Georgie.
Teperson.
No, Castle. He's my mother's family. This uncle was my mother's brother. Kussel. They used to say in Yiddish, Castle in English.
So you're sent to your mom's brothers?
I'm sent to because I was a problem child. At the hotel with all the zonot and everything, it was impossible.
Right.
So all my life I never had a real home. And I never saw my parents much. As much as I loved my mother, I couldn't get there because of the situation. Excuse me a minute.
No problem.
Okay, where were we?
Hold on. We're talking about you're sent to your uncle's.
My uncle's farm.
Uh-huh. Your uncle's farm?
Yeah. I had two uncles. One lived in town in Vicksburg. Now, how did the other uncle get there? He didn't have much business, so his sister, who was married to the uncle on the farm, Cohen, brought him there and fixed him up in a shop.
Okay.
You know, the family helped one another.
Sure.
So that means I had in Vicksburg two uncles. One in town that I stayed with, and the farm. And I'd go to the farm every weekend. I loved the farm. He had a big farm.
And both of these uncles are from your mother's side?
Both from my mother's side.
Both from your mother's side.
It's my mother's sister's husbands.
Okay.
They didn't like me in a way, because when he died, I studied farm school, he left everything to his children. He didn't want me to come in there.
Your uncle?
My uncle, because he thought that if he dies, my aunt would take me into the farm.
Okay.
And I was very happy with that because I didn't want to stay with him, with the family.
So you grew up without parents, basically?
I grew up at... My parents lived in this hotel, so I loved my mother, but I never could get there.
Yeah.
As I said to you, the Zulu boy Piccanin was more of a parent to me than my parents. I loved him. And I never forget when I came back to Israel, from Israel, and I was a soldier already, and I met Piccanin, and he didn't know how to take me and I hugged him, and the black man didn't feel he could hug a white boy. And he cried. I mean, he loved me very much because he brought me up. To me, he was everything.
Wow.
He had thick African lips, and I remember one of the big things I had to teach him is to whistle. He couldn't whistle, so I used to hold his lips together as a kid when he used to bath me and I get into whistle. That's one of the things I taught him to whistle.
And also with your brother and sister, you don't see them a lot either.
Never saw them.
So
They were at boarding school, we were at boarding school.
You really grew up alone. Like,
I grew up alone.
Yeah. How did that shape you? That alone, like that.
That shaped me beautifully. Why? It made me independent. Made me decide. Everything I decided. I went to agriculture school not because my parents sent me. I registered. I did everything myself.
So when you leave home at 6, the hotels, you go to your aunt and uncles, who's one of them's in a city and one's on a farm.
That's right.
During the week, you're in the city studying at school.
That's right.
It's a boarding school, right?
No, I lived with my uncle, so I went to school.
And you went to school. And then on the weekends, you went to the other uncle on the farm.
That's right.
And you loved the farm. That's where is that where your first connection with nature starts?
Yeah, that's right.
With the land, with the soil, with the vast, Now, what part of South Africa is this? Like, what area is this in?
Vicksburg.
Where is
on
it?
the border of Botswana.
On the border of Botswana.
Not Botswana, Bazululand.
Zululand.
Bazululand. Bazuta. Bazutu.
Bazutu.
Don't call them Zulus.
Okay, I won't.
Bazutu.
Bazutu.
Bazutuland. Bazutuland was an African country in the middle.
Now, at your uncles and aunts, when you're living with them, you're celebrating Rosh Hashanah, you know that you're Jewish, you know your Jewish identity, or it's being revealed to you. Is that correct?
Yes. We're a very nationalistic Jewish family.
Give me an example.
What can I give you?
Holidays, Zionism.
Jewish.
Do you know what's happening?
My father taught me, no one called me bloody Jew, be
Right.
proud of being Jewish.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And it stayed with the family.
When is the first time that you realize that people don't like Jews? That there's a problem? That there's
I grew up with it.
anti-Semitism?
I didn't realize. I grew up with it. When I was little, they used to beat me because I was Jewish. So I didn't have to realize. I was told when I was little. The smaller you are, the more they beat you. The bigger you are, the less they beat you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you take New York anywhere, wherever there are Jews, you'll always find someone to run us down or to start with you.
When do you go into boarding school? How old are you? Wait, before that, how often do you see your parents? How often?
They'd come and see me a couple of months. I was at boarding school right near them.
How far?
In Johannesburg, I was at boarding school. And they had a hotel in Johannesburg.
Okay.
So it had no problem for them to come visit me, and they came to visit me.
Okay.
I remember I had scarlet fever, and I was in the fever hospital. We were quarantined, and the only way I could see my parents was over the fence. We couldn't touch each other.
Sure.
And that's why they came to visit me for 6 weeks. I was there. I had scarlet fever.
Yeah.
In those days, scarlet fever was a dangerous thing.
Sure.
The kids went blind or deaf from scarlet fever.
Now the schools and your education that you had was not like, you didn't go to private Jewish schools.
I did.
You did.
They sent me, my mother sent me to a Jewish school here at college. It was a real Jewish school. I only lasted a year there.
How old were you?
I'm dyslexia.
Okay.
Besides being dyslexia, I thought I couldn't read and write.
Right.
And they knew I couldn't read and write because I couldn't see what you were showing me. And they used to beat me because I couldn't see. I saw somebody else. And it took me a long time to catch on.
You were slow.
Huh?
Slow student. Yeah.
I was a lousy student,
Okay.
a bad boy, didn't want to study. My mother didn't know what to do with me. So what do? You send me to my uncle. Bushame Ayelid. He doesn't study. He doesn't, what's that? This is, I didn't see what they saw, something else. They didn't know what dyslexia was or anything like that. So I had a problem as a child, but touch wood, it made me stand on my own 2 legs.
So you did go to a Jewish school for 1 year.
My mother sent me to a Jewish school for 1 year. It was Colonel Levinson. He was a rabbi in World War I, and he with the rank of a colonel. So he used to call him Colonel Levinson's boarding school, Jewish boarding school.
Where was this boarding school, in Johannesburg?
Johannesburg.
Was it a famous school, like?
Nah,
No.
a little Jewish school. What do you want?
And you slept there and everything, and
Yeah, boarding
you were only
school.
there for 1 year.
All those old colonels' children were the teachers.
Okay.
That's where I learned my first sex museum. On Shabbos, we were right next to the zoo. His son would take us to the zoo to watch the monkeys fuck, and he knew when they were fucking. He knew who's on heat. He would check before there.
The son of the rabbi?
The son of the rabbi.
And that's how you learned about sex?
Well, I grew up in a hotel with plenty of sex around me. As a kid, I watched them being banged up against the wall. So I knew what it was.
Now, after, what age are you in this 1 year at this Jewish school? How old are you? 10, 11, 12, 13?
No. 8, 9, I don't remember.
Okay. Big, significant part in every Jewish boy's life is his bar mitzvah.
Never had one.
Why?
Because of my dyslexia. I was a bad boy, I couldn't read and write. So how do you study? To a boy they didn't know I was dyslexia. Didn't know I had a problem. But I was a bad boy, so my mother bought me a watch when I turned bar mitzvah. That's the only thing I had for bar mitzvah. I never had a bar mitzvah. I'm scared to say it today because otherwise the rabbi would come here and ask me for $10,000 to make me a bar mitzvah. Don't you know they look for that? God forbid you just say that you didn't have a bar mitzvah. I'll have 20 rabbis come here to make me a bar mitzvah.
And you never wanted to have a bar mitzvah?
Even if I wanted, I didn't even think of it in those days. Look, I was on my own. I never had much parents.
You never had much what?
Parents. I didn't have love from parents. I didn't have parents. They were busy in the hotel business. So I was all on my own. I grew up on my own, and that helped make me.
But didn't you know that you were supposed to have a bar mitzvah at 13? You didn't know that?
I knew it, but I didn't interest me because firstly, it was difficult for me to learn.
Sure.
Difficult me to learn out, and they wanted me to learn and to read all the things I didn't like.
Lo bishvili.
לא בשבילי.
Right?
מילה נכון, לא בשבילי.
Lo bishvili. I can understand that.
You want some water?
I'm good, my friend. Thank you. So no bar mitzvah. And at this time, you're 13. How old are you when you first hear the word Palestine? How old are you?
I don't know. Palestine, to my family and all the Jewish families, the Jews in South Africa were first Jews, then South Africans. The Jews in America, first Americans, and then Jews. And South Africa, we were so pro-Jewish. Palestine didn't even exist then. I mean, to my mind, I didn't know what Palestine was. But everyone around me belonged to the Tnuah, Hakshara, Hitchashvut, and all that type of thing. So that's the only thing. I joined Timorim in South Africa.
What's Timorim?
Timorim is a kibbutz, is a moshavia that exists today. It was a garin that was formed in South Africa to find a moshavia, to build a moshavia.
Okay, so it's called Timorim.
Timorim.
And where is it located in Israel?
On the coast near Atlit.
Near Atlit, okay. And this is a moshav that was started out, the Hachshara started out in South Africa. Were you a part of that Hachshara or no?
I was, they brought me in because I was a farmer.
Okay.
They wanted me to teach the boys.
Okay.
So I was part, but I left them as soon as I came here, and I went to the Palmach.
Okay, we're gonna get to all that in a bit. In your teens, okay, when you're in your teens in South Africa, there is, when you're 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, there's riots going on here in Palestine. Do you guys hear about these riots? Do you hear about anything that's happening in Palestine with the British mandate?
You read in the papers.
Okay, but nothing like significant. You don't remember like the Arab revolt in 1936, 37, 38, 39. You don't remember. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to ask you another question. Where are you when World War II breaks out? You're,
in South Africa.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law joined the army.
Your brother-in-law?
In-law.
Or your brother?
My brother-in-law in 1939 joined. He belonged to a Scots regiment. And in 1939, I remember the way he marched down the street in the uniform and kilts. Why did they march the street? And to recruit men to the army, to World War II, they marched down the street and the people followed them in and joined the army. Let's say thousands joined the army. They followed the kilts. And my brother-in-law was in the army right through the war. His brother was his two brothers were taken prisoners of war by the Germans in Africa. So I was connected that way.
But you were, of course, too young to fight.
Of course.
Yes, of course, too young to fight. Do you remember wartime in South Africa? Like, was there rationing? Was there...
I don't remember. I grew up in a small town. In a small town, we didn't have any of that. Maybe in the big cities it happened. In my little village now.
No.
We had the Dutch, the pro-German.
Tell me about that. Were they Nazis? Were they fascists?
They were so anti-British they were Nazis.
They were so anti-British?
You must know, what the Germans did to us, the British did to the Dutch.
In South Africa?
People don't know it, but it's true. You know what they used to do? Take blankets with typhoid and things like that and give it to the refugees. Thousands of them died from these different diseases. And the main reason it was passed through the blankets that they gave these refugees, they took the women off the farms and put them into concentration camps. The word concentration camp comes from the Boer War. Thousands of Dutch women died. This is a true story. But the British never talk about it. They killed more than the Germans ever killed. They didn't like the Dutch. The Dutch didn't like them.
Dutch, German.
Because South Africa was Dutch. And the British conquered them. Occupied the whole of Cape.
Wasn't it Dutch, German, or just Dutch?
Dutch. Nothing to do with German. Afrikaans. The Afrikaners came there in 1500 with Van Riebeeck, who was a Dutchman. And they settled in Cape Town, and this was their Cape Point. And then the British took over. In 1800, they captured Cape Town. And
Good old British.
And the Dutch moved inland, and that's when they fought the Zulus and that.
Did you have any hatred towards the British at this point?
What do you mean?
Did you have any resentment towards the British because of this? No.
Only later.
Only later. We'll get to that. Okay, I'm going to jump a little bit, and we're going to go a little bit more further in time. In 1945, you are 17 years old. Is that correct?
17, 16, 16, I don't remember. I've got to work it out.
You're what?
From 1926, work it out. I was born in 1926.
Yeah. So you are 1926? So 1945, you're 19. Wait, let's go back a few. When you're 18, you never finished high school, is that correct?
Never.
Never finished. When
I went to agricultural school.
Okay, so you went to agricultural school. At what age did you start agricultural school? Do you remember?
I put myself there because my parents were so busy running the hotel. I went to agricultural boarding school. I was the first Jew to go there. And this school was like 1800. We walked barefoot. I used to say, how did we heat our feet in the morning? I told you that story.
No.
At agricultural school, we worked at 5 in the morning. We would get up, milk the cows. We did both works. We went to school and we ran the farm. So 1 week you'd be with the chickens, and 1 week you'd be with the cows, the horses, and this is the way they taught you agriculture with different animals. And how did we heat our feet? The cows would get up and we'd bring them in to milk at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were barefoot, all of us. We didn't have shoes. And as soon as the cow shut, we'd run and put our feet into it. Heat your feet up. It's hot. And then anyway, you wash the stable floors. You could eat off it afterwards. But so we washed our feet, so it was nothing. It was just to keep your feet warm. No one had shoes. We were poor boys. All the Afrikaans didn't have shoes. That's what you grew up with, barefoot, like the Africans grew up barefoot.
And this school was where? Where was this agricultural school?
Agricultural School, Klein William. Klein William is a town.
And you were the only Jew there?
Oh, I
You
was
were
the
the only
only
Jew.
Jew. One other Jew came afterwards.
And is this where that 15-year-old, is this where you had that experience with that kid who called you a bloody Jew?
Yes, we had the agricultural show, and our agricultural school ran it. And you had these Christians, these people come in, they tried to sneak in. They had to pay 1 shilling to get in, and the money went to help poor farmers. And I was on guard duty with another friend of mine to see that people didn't sneak in. And so we stopped these two, and they were a bit drunk. So that's when he said to me, bloody Jew, and I hit him out of this world. I hit both of them. I knocked them out, and that's when they called me the mad Jew.
What did they call you?
They called me the mad Jew, don't touch him.
The mad Jew, like crazy mad?
He said, listen, I was big, I was 15, I knocked the hell out of both of them. They called me bloody Jew.
So
they were a bit drunk.
So that was your nickname?
Huh?
Was that a nickname that you had?
No.
They called you the Mad Jew. Was it
No,
like a nickname?
no. Only then they called me Mad Jew because the way I hit them. But only that never stayed. Those things didn't stay with me.
Did you have any other anti-Semitic issues in school or in that period?
When I was younger,
Yeah.
I had anti-Semitic. They used to corner me, but I'd always fight back. My father taught me that.
Right.
He hits, you hit. And you know what happens? They leave you alone. If you don't fight back, they tackle you every time they see you.
Yeah.
If you fight back, they don't come near you,
So that's
no matter how big you are.
What do you say out of your childhood? And we're going to get to the end of you being 18. What would you tell me now, David? What did you learn as a child in South Africa growing up? What was the things that shaped you? The land, the being.
Land. I love South Africa. I'm a country boy. I love the country. I love the land. So those things I'm connected to the soil till today. I mean, even now you see, I'm sitting here on 3.5 dunums. You see the. Annabelle, you want something to drink?
I'm good, thanks.
You don't want coffee?
After.
I want to have a coffee. So
Okay, let's have a coffee.
Annabelle, 2 coffees.
Thank you. I'm thinking, you know who I'm thinking of right now? I'm thinking of the Jungle Book, even though we're not in the jungle now, but I'm thinking of, you know the story, the Jungle Book? I'm thinking of Mowgli, but I'm thinking of you as some kind of wild boy running around the bush.
That's right.
And
You know how I used to walk in the bush?
there's no parents.
I'd walk to my parents' farm, my uncle's farm, start raining, I take all my clothes off and I walk naked. I hold my clothes underneath so I don't get wet. Because I only had shorts and a shirt, that's all you wore in those days. And you were barefoot.
No, but as a child, you were provided for, is that correct? I mean, you had what to eat. You weren't poor.
We were comfortable.
You were comfortable.
I was never poor.
Okay. You were comfortable. So the reason I'm asking is because, The reason I'm asking is because you know that you're like this, you're like Mowgli. And you're in school here, you're in school there, you're kind of your own master.
That's right.
Because you can't read and write very well, is your imagination like completely developed?
Overdeveloped.
Huh?
Overdeveloped.
Explain to me, what do you mean overdeveloped?
I couldn't call it overdeveloped, but I always, I'm a dreamer. And everything I've done in my life has never been difficult for me. Everything I've done is my own doing. I took things as they came, put it that way.
Okay.
And I adjusted accordingly. So I learned to adjust in life according to your surroundings. That's what I actually did. And being big helped, today I realize it, saved me a lot. If I was a small boy, I would have been beaten and eaten, but I'm very strong. I broke fingers. I broke, not once, a couple of times. And I even picked teachers up and hung them on the wall. I told you a story.
You're going to tell me about that more in depth right now, but yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I did that, and the principal came and told me to take them off the wall. I was only 15, but I was very strong.
Tell me the story about you hanging up the teacher. What happened?
He called me bloody Jew. No one called me bloody Jew. My father told me that. I picked him up and I hung him.
Why did he call you a bloody Jew? Why? What did you do? What was the circumstances? Was it in class? Was it in front of other students?
Excuse me.
What happened?
Put yourself that you're a black man, not a white man. You're a black man. How do you feel? Make yourself a black man. And you now are a white man. That's what I'm trying to get at. You're different. And they look upon you different. You had this movie that says, how did he say? I don't like the Ikeys. That's Jews. But all the Jews all their lives fought, all the Jewish boys in Brooklyn, everywhere, they all had to fight. My brother was a boxer. All the big clubs, boxing, fighting clubs, were all Jews. All our kids learn to fight and box and to defend yourself, especially in South Africa.
Do you remember that? Was that some sort of changing? What did you do to this teacher? What happened?
He called me bloody Jew. No one called me bloody Jew. My father taught me that.
And what did you do to him?
I picked him up and I hung him on a hook. On his jacket.
Did you hit him?
His whole jacket, I pushed up onto the hook and he was hanging on his jacket. He was like this. Look, I'm big.
Yeah.
I'm 6'6". I'm 15, 16, but I'm the same height. So that helped me.
Did you get in trouble?
Huh?
Did you get punished?
Excuse me, the principal is not going to punish me because he called me bloody Jew, not I. And you know, the Jews were in small places were very comfortable. They all had money. and they could command respect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the rich Jew, because the Goy doesn't look like that. We were all the rich Jews. Why come all the Jews had money and the Goyim didn't? They'd drink it out.
And especially Afrikaners who were very low income,
That's
poor
right.
farmers.
That's right. That's right.
So they envied you.
They didn't only envy us, they admired us. Firstly, you were proud of being Jewish. They made you proud. And the Afrikaner was a simple man. He was white, but there was no difference between him and the colored. They were all the same. He drank.
The
Alcohol,
Afrikaners
alcohol,
drink a
alcohol,
lot?
all of them.
They were
The Goyim, where did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
Detroit.
Who drank there? Who kept the bars alive? The Goyim. The miners. How many Jews went to work in the mines? Not one. Because they could all read and write, they all had bar mitzvah. My father told me that. He said, why do you think the Jews succeeded everywhere and everyone's jealous of them? Every Jew had a bar mitzvah. And he came from a family that could read and write. The Goyim grew up with his mother and father, they couldn't read and write. They had to go to the priest to write a letter. They had to go to the priest to decipher a letter. The whole mentality was different.
When you hung this teacher up on the hook, was that when you're looking at the incident right now? We'll have the coffee in a sec. When you're looking at that incident right now, and you're looking back at it.
Give, yeah.
Thank you.
Give him his coffee.
I'll take it. Thank you. I'm good. When you're looking at that moment, now.
Annabelle, bring something to Nash. For him too. You want a sandwich?
No, soon. When you're looking at that moment, when you took that teacher and put him up on the thing, and how, because that was just a hint of what you were going to be in your life, you know?
My father taught me, no one calls us bloody Jew. Be proud of being Jewish, and I'm really proud of being Jewish. And being big helped me. Oh, what did you bring? Oh, open it.
They're open here.
Oh, he gives me even.
Yeah. The tavan. When is the first moment that you start getting involved in, actually before that, World War II is over, 1945, okay? You're 19 years old.
45 and 90, I haven't worked it out.
Yeah, you were born in 26, you're 19 years old. When do you guys start hearing about the rumors about what happened in Europe to the Jews?
I never thought of it.
You never heard of it?
I heard of it, I never thought of it.
Okay, but when do you start hearing about it?
I don't know.
You don't know.
And everyone, like every newspaper, you went with that.
Do you have any family in Lithuania
No.
that you guys are worried about?
I had.
Your parents talk about uncles, aunts,
Yes,
cousins
I had Uncle Taunt in Lithuania killed.
killed in the Holocaust. But it has no impact.
My
on you.
mother's oldest sister and 6 children were all killed.
But you found that out later? Or right after?
Right, I knew already.
Yeah.
Because they had no
Because for somebody-
after the
because
war,
for some-
they couldn't get contact with any of them.
Because for somebody who grew up with the motto, don't call me a bloody Jew, and then there's all these 6 million Jews were murdered and gassed in Europe, it doesn't make you feel it doesn't make you feel angry, it doesn't make you feel revenge, it doesn't impact you, nothing.
Life goes on.
I understand. I understand that life goes on, and it has to go on. Here, I got it.
Not only that, people, you got the talkers. People that place themselves in a position as if they were there, and they were never there. You know what I mean? I don't like these people for one reason. They've taken the kavod away from someone that's coming to it. If you know what I mean.
Sure. Okay. During the war, did you ever want to join the army?
I couldn't.
Okay. But did
Too
you
young.
want to?
I was too young.
I know, but did you want to? Did you want to be?
How can I do I can't. I've got to wait till I'm 18
I
before.
understand. I understand.
And not that. And till I'm 21, I couldn't sign for myself. My parents signed for me. If my mother didn't sign, they'd bring me back.
Why is that?
In South Africa, the law said 21 years old, your parents have got to sign for you to go to the army. You couldn't at 18 go.
So basically, until you're 21, you're under the subject of your parents. And that was in your case.
All the South Africans.
Okay.
That's the law there.
Just for the record, what year do you come to Palestine?
1948.
1948, okay. So,
I actually came at the end of 1947, 48,
sure.
because I came through France.
Okay.
So
We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get to that. I want to know about when you're between 18, and before you go to Palestine, before you go to France. What are you doing? Because you're already a grown man now. You're 18 years old. You're not a kid anymore. Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have lovers? Are you social groups? What are you doing? Where are you? Where's David? What does he want to do?
I was in a village. And all my Afrikaans friends, a lot of people, when they started schools there, high school, I had people at high school that were 25. What did the Afrikaners do? They only had junior schools first. So then they opened up a high school. Some of these farmers came back and went to school to get educated. So you had at high school some pretty older men, if you know what I mean. But it was the whole mentality. For instance, like in our little village, you walk down the street, I told you how you shook hands and said, "Good morning, uncle." I grew up with that. You can't throw it out the window. It's there. So I don't know how to explain it to you, but I didn't even think of it. This is natural. You do what's coming. That was life.
When you're 18, where are you living? Where's your residence? You said the small village?
Garis. My parents had a hotel at Garis and Springbok. I lived with my father at Garis. I went to school at Garis. Today it's closed. There's no village there. It's a closed area with all the houses inside. It's like in America, on the, Route 66, you've got whole closed villages and shops and everything.
Why is it abandoned?
The second generation all went to become educated.
Gotcha.
It's happened right.
Sure.
Route 6 in America today is a dead route.
Yeah.
And the main reason is when everyone left.
So you actually do reunite with your father. Do you go to work for him? Are you working for your father at this point? At the bar?
I worked at the bar. I ran the bar.
How old were you?
When I was 14, I was running the bar already. I looked much older than I am.
Excuse me, when you're 14?
My father used to have 1 or 2 drinks, I put him to bed. He liked to drink. He grew up in a bar as a barman. So he'd have 1 or 2 drinks, I put him to bed.
Okay, but
And I would close the bar, run the bar, and everyone knew. I was 18, but I was 15. And I ran the bar, took the till, and bottled the wine. We bring bottles of wine and bottle them and sell them in bottles to the coloureds. So I ran the whole business. When I was 15, I was running the hotel.
But I thought you were sent away into boarding schools.
That's afterwards. I went to boarding schools too. I never had a home, because my parents always had hotels. A hotel's not a home. It's a room. So it's a complete different outlook. Like I told you, I had Pickanin, a Zulu boy. He was my home.
He was your parent.
Mm.
Okay. It is, so until 21, now I want to go to the age of like 18, 19. You're living with your father in Springboks, or?
We had the Springbok Hotel my mother was running.
Okay.
A Gary's Hotel my father was running, and I was with him.
And you were with your father?
So I'm actually running the hotel.
When you're 18?
I was even before 18.
Even before 18.
From the age of 15, I was running the hotel.
Okay. But you were in and out of the hotel. You were back in school, not here, not there. You were.
The school was there. I went
Yeah.
to school at the place.
Okay.
I didn't have to go either out.
So you experienced at a very young age bar fights and drunks.
We had no bar fights.
No bar fights.
That's only in the movies.
Okay, but you let's put it this way: you experienced at a young age the darker side of society, drinking,
Drunks.
prostitution.
Yeah.
It was a saloon.
Yes. When when I went to hospital, all the nurses came to look at me. Why? They'd never seen a circumcised man. So I was a good. They all came to see me. They wanted to see what a Yort looks like, what a Jew looks like. They heard I'm circumcised. I used to say to them, I'm just like Jesus. Jesus and I were circumcised. They couldn't take that.
Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about your involvement with the Mif'al HaTzioni. When is the first time that you can remember you being a part of or going to a meeting or hearing someone talking about Palestine and the war of liberation and Beitar and Palmach and Haganah and Kibbutz and Moshav, and where are you? How old are you, Rob? Like when is this happening?
They had Timurim. You know what Timurim is?
No.
Timurim is today a Moshav in Israel. They had a Garin out of Johannesburg. They formed from Zionist Jews. I knew nothing about them. And the Zionist Federation took me and wanted me to teach them farming, because I was a farmer already. I farmed in Africa. And I went to farm school. I was the only Jew that went to farm school. So yeah, you got an educated farm boy, and the Zionist Federation caught me and sent me to Israel. I was
Sent you to Israel?
To Palestine.
They sent you to Palestine?
Yes.
So
why did they send me? They had the Garinim, you know, the groups. They were all city people that wanted to be. So they first sent me in Johannesburg to their little farms there.
Okay, let's get to that first. How did the Federation find you? How do they know about you?
I went and registered with them. I'm a farm boy. Oh, they caught me with two hands when they heard it. I had more privileges than veterans in the war because there was such a shortage of people that farmed. Jews were checkbook farmers. You know what checkbook farmers are? He runs a farm with a checkbook. He knows nothing about farming. It's a business. And I was a farmer.
But how did the Jewish Federation in South Africa, how do they find you? Where do they find you?
I registered with them that I want to go.
Why?
Because the war was going on here, and I read about it, and I said, I want to go to Israel. That's why. I was pro-Jewish, very pro-Jewish.
But you don't, you're what I'm trying to figure out is where does the coin drop? Efon ofela Simon, when you say, I want to go to Israel, what happens? I'm trying to figure out what is your calling moment.
I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is, by growing up the way I grew up with the Goyim and the things, I was very pro-Jewish.
Okay.
I'm very proud of being Jewish, like my father taught me. And being big, touch wood, I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with the Goyim. I was too big for them, if you know what I mean. So that's the actual background of it.
Okay.
On that background, I built my whole life.
So you joined this garin called, is that the name of the garin? It's called Timorim. What does Timorim mean?
Timorim is a moshav in Israel today.
Does it mean anything, the word though? Timorim?
I don't know what it means.
Okay. So you joined this group that are Jews from Johannesburg.
No, the Zionist Federation sent me to this group because they
Because
caught...
you have the agricultural experience and they don't.
Because I was a farmer.
Right. Now,
And they were so pleased with me.
So what year is it around? Do you know? What year are we talking about?
47.
47?
'48, I'm on the way.
Right, wait a second. So the Jewish Federation sets up a garin, and you're like an...
No, that garin was up before. It's an old garin, Timorim. And they sent me there to teach them, to plow.
Where is this in South Africa?
They had a farm outside Johannesburg, I don't remember where. But they sent me to teach them farming because they were so city people. They didn't know, I mean, the girls came down to work with red nails and blue nails and lipstick and what's them. I said, that's not... And I was in charge of the gun. It was very... I wasn't a city boy. I grew up with Afrikaans girls in the country. And yet I had all these Jewish princesses.
Was this the first time you were exposed to different kind of Jews, like city Jews who don't like...
No, I was exposed all my life.
Okay.
I never took a difference.
Now, are these people younger than you, or are they the same age?
I don't remember. I'm around the same age, imagine. Nearly everyone was. You had older people too that came with a gun in. You had people that are 5, 6 years older than me. It depends who they were, which garin they belonged to. You had the Zionist organizations were organized.
Zionist organization, was it, I don't know, so I'm asking you. Was Zionist organization in South Africa affiliated with Etzel, Beitar, or was it affiliated more with like Mapai?
I don't know, Mapai.
Huh?
I don't know. I never involved myself in politics.
Okay, I'm just asking. So you're with this garin in South Africa. You're teaching them how to work the land,
How to plow
how
with
to
a jeep.
plow, and you know that you're going to Palestine with them. Is that correct? That's the plan.
Not with them, I'm going to Palestine. Nothing to do with them.
David, I still don't understand what makes you decide that you want to go to Palestine.
I grew up very pro-Jewish. And I kept reading about Etzel and Lechi and what's them.
And
You
who?
read the papers, you want to go. Firstly, I was young. I was good with a gun. I'm a country boy. And I felt perfectly at home in the army. I was an army man before I was an army
And your
man.
parents,
Nothing.
you told them, they're like, okay, whatever.
My parents never bothered. I went to school. I didn't go to school. They didn't know. I was a bad boy because I'm dyslexia and I couldn't read and write. So all my life I was the black sheep.
Okay. What about your brother and sister at these moments?
They were my mother's love and brother. Proud of being my brother. He went to university. my sister was educated, and yet I've got my dumb son, me. The only thing I got from my mitzvah was a watch. I've still got it.
Will you show it to me after?
Huh?
Will you show it to me after?
I've got to look for it.
Oh, okay. That's fine. But you still have it.
Yes, it's in the drawer somewhere.
Nice. So, how long are you working with this Garin in South Africa for?
Not very long.
Not very long.
Because they sent me off straight away.
To Israel?
They sent me to France.
Okay. On the 29th of November, 1947, when the United Nations partitions Palestine, do you remember where you were? No.
Those dates didn't bother me.
I understand. But I'm trying to figure out if you're in South Africa when it happens or you're in Palestine when it happens.
I'm in France.
You're in France. So you do remember that you were in France?
No, I went to the first place I went to France. From France I went to Palestine.
Okay. When you leave South Africa, do you remember roughly when it was when you left?
I flew with a group. I had a boy with me. I went through Cairo as Dutch Reformed Church because I spoke better Dutch than English.
Okay. So who did you fly with to Cairo?
When I flew, the British checked us at Cairo, and I claimed to be Dutch Reformed Church because I spoke Dutch better than English. And I'll never forget the Egyptian said, what's Dutch Reformed? And the Englishman next to me says, that's an Afrikaner. Can't you see he's too big to be Jewish? Because my size helped me. I couldn't be Jewish, I'm too big. So that's how I went through, and I traveled on the plane, and I sat next to a man. He said, Hal, he was the head of the airline. We got no Jewish competition in that, and he ran down the Jews. Oei, wees meer. And I kept saying in Afrikaans, yes, the bloody Jews, the bloody Jews.
Did you fly it with a group of people who were going to Palestine, or you just flew on a commercial flight?
No, I flew with a group, with a small group that were going to Palestine.
Okay.
Take two, so you don't have to get up again.
So you flew, who sponsored your trip?
Zionist Federation. They sent me very quickly because I'm a farmer, and they used me. In those days, being a farmer like I was, and I really farmed in South Africa, put me at the top of the list. I was even top before army people, because they had the Moshavim and the Garinim. They needed, and how many Jews in the world were farmers? And all those that came from the city with their painted nails and lipstick, and they couldn't go make them work on the farm. So they sent me as top priority, the Federation.
So you fly from South Africa to France. Where do you land in France? Where are you?
Paris.
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 For how long?
I remember Paris. We took ourselves we took the taxi service used to take a couple of people. You call a taxi. He wouldn't only take you. He'd fill the taxi up. That's was the system. And I'll never forget, I got in the taxi with my friend, we were going, and the people asked me where I'm from. I said, from South Africa, this, that, and we're students going on a trip. That was the orders we had. I'll never forget two Englishmen, they were Jews.
Two who?
Two Englishmen who traveled with us, then you traveled 4 or 5 in the taxi. The taxi filled himself up. There was shortage of taxis. So I get in the taxi. I'll never forget when they got out of the taxi, they said, give our love to Palestine. Because all the newspapers were writing about the volunteers coming from all over the world to fight in Palestine.
How did they know you were volunteers?
They didn't know. They took it automatically. I said, I'm a student coming to work with them. So they said, that's a student.
Coming to where? To Paris?
I came to Paris.
Yeah.
When I got in, we took a taxi together. the group taxi. So the two men there were Jews, they said, give our love to Palestine. I said, what do you mean Palestine? I'm going to Israel. He said, don't tell us. Because the papers were full of volunteers coming.
Tell me, who gave you these orders? The Zionist Federation?
Yeah.
Now, do you have...
Philip Zuckerman
Who?
sent me.
Who?
Philip Zuckerman, he was head of... Philip Zuckerman, he died here. He's from the Zionist Federation. His daughter lives here. Philip took me and I was sent hush-hush because of my agricultural background,
Right.
more than anything else.
How long are you in Paris for? Do you remember?
We went, that's when I took a prostitute. We had a whole do there. We had one bloke that never had a woman. So we had to take prostitutes for him because of
From
him.
South Africa, South African bloke.
Yeah, he was 30-some years old. He was the oldest of all of us, but he's never had a woman. And he was dying to have a woman. And he walked down Folie Bergère, they caught you by the pants, monsieur, 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 and he was waiting. So we had to have volunteers. So we said, okay, you take a woman. He says, no, he won't take unless I take with him. So I took a woman, and this is the first time I got a shock. I have the story. I go up to the hotel room, and I asked the man to check to see if she was checked the same day. You know, then the prostitutes used to be checked by the doctor, and they had a petit.
Sure.
And I asked the hotel manager. He checked. He said she's clean, good. She was checked yesterday, and I took her to bed. Okay, but the funny thing is, there is a story by itself. I'm lying in bed. What do you do with a prostitute? I'd never been with one. I'm lying there, and she's in a gutkers, and what's her name? Not very sexy.
A girdle.
Yeah, girdle.
Yeah.
With stockings.
Uh-huh.
And she's sitting there, and I'm lying in bed, and I've got the beach, a lovely girl, and I'm looking, and she calls me over. She takes a little toothbrush out, takes my penis, and polishes it. I thought she's going to hang it out to dry.
Are you serious?
Well, I couldn't stand. Of course I'm serious. She took my penis and cleaned it.
Did you use any
with
soap?
a brush.
Any
Soap and a brush. She cleaned it and held it there. And then I lie in bed and she says, "Monsieur, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Give me a little bit of time. I've got to get over it." She couldn't understand why I didn't stand up. No, that was an experience.
And the guy who hadn't been with a woman, was he finally...
Oh, he that was his first woman.
Yeah.
And he spent the whole night with her. And from then on, he spoke. We got him married after he was 30-some. They made a fixed marriage for him. And he stayed on Timurim on the kibbutz. He was older bloke, and we fixed him up. And you say, "Oh, remember that night with the prostitute? Oh, he fucked him." He says, "Oof, she fucked my ass off." She fucked. What she didn't do to him. It stayed with him for life. He got married afterwards. So I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time.
And that's Paris after the war. It's kind of thriving. There's a lot going on. There's people from all over. Do you know at this time, I mean, when you're in Paris, we're going to get to your journey to Palestine, I'm sure you guys go by boat. But do you know what's happening there? That there's, what year and month are we right now when you're in Paris? Do you remember? Do you remember the date that you arrived in Palestine?
Yes,
What's the
I'll
date?
tell you in a minute. I'll give you the date in a minute.
Okay, think about it. It's fine.
I arrived in Paris. When I arrived in Paris.
Or Palestine.
Palestine, I came on the illegal ship Teti.
We're going to get that. Do you remember the date though?
Teti was doing shuttle service between France and Palestine.
Shuttle service.
That means they'd fill the place up with new immigrants, take them to Palestine, come back empty, fill it up again. I slept on the deck with a whole bunch of other youngsters.
Wait a sec, okay? Do you remember, so you made your way from Paris down to Marseille or something, or?
That's right.
Right, down to Marseille?
I took the train to Marseille.
Mm-hmm. But how long were you in France altogether? A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I think about 2-3 weeks.
2-3 weeks. Are you getting any news about what's happening in Palestine? Are you guys being briefed?
What we read in the papers.
Nothing significant.
No,
did anything significant?
we did one thing.
Okay.
In Marseille, we trained in the mountains.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
The Haganah, the Palmachnikim, this is where I met my first Palmachnikim. They took us, they had a Sten gun there, they taught us, and we did exercise. Paul, how to take up positions, fighting positions, and stuff like that.
Like infantry maneuvers.
That's right. Maneuvers working, and how you take up fighting positions and stuff like that. And they showed us the Sten gun, and we took it to pieces and put it together again, and took it to pieces and put it together.
And this is the first time that you're dealing with Haganah people, that you actually see a Sabra. They speak
Haganah.
funny, they're...
They're all Haganah.
Did that
They were Palmachnikim.
Yeah.
This is where I got involved with the Palmach.
This is what?
This is how I got involved with the Palmach. They were
What was your impression of them?
all my people around me were Palmachnikim. I forget afterwards, Motogul my Menkaf. There in the Palmach. Barlev was my battalion commander afterwards in the Palmach, because I ran away to the Palmach. I joined the Palmach and we fought with the Palmach, Chayota Negev. I joined Chayota Negev.
Okay, we're going to definitely get to that. But so when you're in Marseille, they take you up to the mountains. How many people are you in your group? 10, 20?
No, I don't remember. Oh, they kept changing us, kept getting other people coming, more people coming back.
And are you meeting?
And
are you meeting other volunteers?
I
from
did
different
guard
countries?
duty on people that were spies for the British, a Romanian.
Excuse me?
The British installed spies with the Aliyah. Why? They were trying to catch who was supporting the British Embassy. Want to know who's supporting who. They would use these people as spies.
Who? What kind of people?
New immigrants from Romania, from this. And they'd pay them money to do it. And we caught them. And I guarded one of them.
I want you to, I've never heard anything like this. I want you to stop for a second. I want you to think.
No
I need
people.
to write something down, okay?
I had one cry to me.
So the spies were Jews. They were Holocaust survivors.
They were the Holocaust survivors, and the British paid the money to get information.
Okay, tell me about it.
Well, I used to catch him. I did guard duty on one, and he cried to me.
In Marseille.
In Marseille. He cried to me, he said, I'm a good Jew, what's the matter? I didn't, but I needed the money, that's why I took the money from the British. He spied for them. To say when the Haganah ships were leaving, when the Haganah was doing, that's what, because, I mean, everything went through Marseille, including me. And I guarded one of these people. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but I think that he probably disappeared because you couldn't be in a marechet like that without continuing. What they do, let him free, so give him information again.
So you think they killed him?
Huh? I don't know. He disappeared. I guarded him for a while, then he disappeared. Don't know what they did with him.
Where was he from? Do you remember?
Huh?
Do you remember where he was from?
No.
But he was a Jewish survivor who the British managed to pay him, and he gave information about Aliyah Bet.
That's what they said. I'm only going what other people told me.
You didn't catch him though. They caught him. The Haganah people there caught him, and
I guarded him.
you guarded him. How did that make you feel?
I never felt anything. Spy is spy. What should I feel? Because he's Jewish?
So they're training you in infantry maneuvers in Marseille up in the mountains. And they're basically getting you ready. Now you know that when you land in Palestine, you're going to Timorim. Is that correct? You know that you're going to go there once you land there, or you don't know?
I was registered with them, but I told them I wouldn't go there. I'm going to the army. I'm an army man. I grew
You've
up
never
with a
been
gun.
in the army.
I grew up with a gun. I grew up in the field hunting. So that's why I'm an army man more than army men that are army men. I had a lot more army in me than anything else. Because I grew up with a gun in Africa, hunting from the age of 10, so I kind of felt quite at home.
So the boat that you leave on is called?
Teti.
How would you spell it?
T-I-T-I.
Teti.
I think that's how you spell it. Teti. Okay.
Is there anything, who's on your boat? Refugees, Machal people, Haganah people, who's on the boat with you? How many people are on the boat? Is it a big boat? Is it a small boat?
We slept on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
They had refugees in the bottom. We slept as the youngsters on the cover of the there was a cover of the whole interior of the boat. We slept on that. It's
Okay.
like a little roof. You slept on one side and the other side.
Question I have to ask you. When you're in France, when you're in Marseille, this is actually the first time that you're seeing victims of the Holocaust, right?
I never even looked at it.
What do you mean?
I'm telling you, I never even looked at it. It wasn't on my mind. I had other things on my mind.
What was on your mind?
I'm coming to Israel to fight. What will I go back to the Holocaust? The Holocaust, everyone was trying to sell Holocaust. I wasn't buying it. Holocaust, it's a way of life. So you had a number on your arm.
No impact at all.
No impact on me at all. I tell you, sometimes people say, how can you have no impact? I said, of course. If I had to have an impact on everything I did and where I went, I'd have a problem. So I had to clean my head out, cut it out. Those things that you expected me to have an impact on. I learned you live according to your interior, you know what I mean? That's the way you live. That's the way you do it. I couldn't change myself. And I couldn't feel sorry for the Holocaust.
Why couldn't you feel sorry?
So everyone went through it. Are you going to feel sorry for all the Jews in the world that's suffering? It's impossible.
But, you know, you see little kids, parents, old people that...
How much have you suffered from that?
Well, I never saw it.
Oh, toda rabah. I never saw it either.
Well, you saw the refugees.
So what? So I saw a person say he was a refugee.
Okay, no, I'm just...
It made no influence on me.
Okay. So do you remember how long it took the journey? Probably a few days, maybe a week, to sail from Marseille to Palestine?
About a week.
About a week. Was there anything significant
It
on that journey that happened on the boat? Anything worth mentioning?
We had a group of Finnish Jews.
Of who?
Finnish.
From Finland.
From Finland.
I didn't even know there were Jews in Finland.
And they came with German uniforms because they fought in the Finnish army with the Germans. And this whole Finnish group, there was one girl and 7, 8 boys, Jews that fought with German uniform, that fought in the German army against the Russians. And they were a good bunch of kids. They weren't kids, they were older than me, the Finnish Jews. And I've got a carpet hanging there that they made me, I'll never forget. They retired, in Ranana, where is he living? And he made me a carpet, one of them. This is the Finnish Machal.
How many people were in the Finnish Machal?
The ones that I knew were 11. 2 girls and 9 boys. And they were all fought in the German army.
Well, the Finnish and the Germans were allies.
That's right.
But
they were all soldiers in the Finnish army.
Yeah. But they weren't allies out of ideology. They were allies out of they had the same.
They fought Russia.
The Russians, yeah.
Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
They were interesting people, and they were good people.
Do you remember the date that you arrived in Palestine from Marseille?
I'm trying to think. When was the State of Israel declared? On the 15th of May?
On the 15th of May, 1948.
I arrived before that. I know.
When you arrived, was it rainy? Was it sunny? Did you arrive? First of all, did you arrive in Haifa? Is that correct? Or Tel Aviv?
Outside Tel Aviv.
Outside Tel Aviv?
We had the Altalina then too, afterwards.
You saw the Altalina?
Afterwards.
Oh, after?
Altalina came afterwards.
Okay, so why did you mention the Altalina?
Because I wanted to tell you that in Tel Aviv we had the Altalina on the beach. It stood there.
Wait a second. When you arrived from France, and you arrived near Tel Aviv, you saw the Altalina. It was before the Altalina, but it was the same area. The Altalina hadn't happened yet.
Altalina hadn't happened.
Okay. So the Altalina happened in June 48. So this is before June 48 that you arrived. And you think that you arrived before the Declaration of Independence, which is on the 15th of May.
That's right.
Okay, if it comes back to you, the date that you arrived or the month that you arrived, we'll try and figure that out. But did you have any problems with the British?
I had in Cairo.
In Cairo, you told me, yeah.
No. With the British.
When you got off the boat, were you smuggled off? Or were you normally went through the process of immigration and...
The Jewish agency, I gave them my passport. It's written the date that I got off the boat, stamped by the Jewish agency. They got the passport today as a document. I gave it to them. And I got off the boat, and they rang me up from Haifa, you know, where they keep the boats, the records of the boats of the immigrants. Athlete, you know where Athlete is?
Sure.
There. And I gave them material of of my getting off the boat of my passport. It's there.
Now, when you got off the boat,
Yeah.
was it dark? Was it night? Was it... You don't remember? And was it kind of like... were you smuggled off? Or did you guys... Was it kind of like public knowledge? Like, here we are, we're getting off, here's the port, we have to go through customs, we have to go through this? Or was it get off the boat and let's get in and like secrecy?
Tell you the truth, I don't remember.
Okay. That's fine.
It's so easy to make up a story.
Of course. We don't want to make up stories. What is your first memory in Israel, in Palestine? Where do you go? Like, you get in Tel Aviv, where do you go? Who takes you? Where do you sleep?
I went to the Palmach. So I joined the Palmach, Chayot HaNegev. We were cut off in the Negev. I had friends there, so I joined them. And we went down to the Negev. We were cut off in the Negev. And that became the Chayot HaNegev. And I was with a Jeep commander group. They built my commander group up with 10 Jeeps. Motogor, you know who that was? Motogor is one of my memim. And we were 10 Jeeps, and we used to make raids behind the enemy lines. I was a driver and a gunner. I wasn't a memkaf yet. And besides the people that were with me, we had a couple of officers, including Barlev was my battalion commander. Motogul was my lieutenant. And we raided the Egyptian bases, which were fixed bases, typical British. We used to raid them and run.
So you used to go behind enemy lines?
Yes.
Hit and run?
That's right.
Okay.
We did that a lot.
Okay, so we're going to get to that in a sec. I want to go chronologically. So you arrive in Israel, in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
The war is happening, it's gone. So you probably arrived sometime after the 29th of November, 47. Maybe you arrived at the beginning of 48, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try and figure that out. But as I read in your Machal test thing,
Excuse me.
no problem. So when you arrive to Israel, you don't remember if it's Palestine or if it's Israel, but we don't really know the date. You never make it to the Moshav. You don't go to the Moshav. You go to fight immediately. Are you immediately taken into the Palmach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I joined the Palmach automatically because I knew about the Palmach.
Sure.
And I admired them. And I wanted to be a Palmachnik. And Motogur was one
Right.
and Barlev, they had the top people.
Right.
And these people influenced me. I was with the Anglo-Saxon group.
Okay, tell me about the group that you're with. It's Chayot HaMidbar, Chayot HaNegev. Chayot HaNegev. So you don't like go and tour around the country, you go immediately into action. Is that correct? Immediately into action. Apparently the situation is bad.
That's right.
Yeah. There's no time to...
We were going across, okay.
Let's talk about Machal. So you're in a group with Machal people in Chayot HaNegev. Isn't that the Givati Brigade? What Chativa is it?
No Chativa.
No Chativa.
It's Chativat HaNegev.
Chativat HaNegev. Okay. Chativat Chayot HaNegev, Tzevet
Chativat HaNegev.
Chativat HaNegev. Okay. Now, in your group of foreigners, who's with you? People from where? Anybody significant? I'm not talking about Barlev and Motagur. I'm talking about, are any people from the boat with you? Any of the Finns?
All type of chevra from South Africa, we had from England, from South Africa. I even had Norwegian with me. I had a Norwegian, one Norwegian, Klein. He was with me in Alexandroni in the beginning.
So in the beginning you were in Khativat Alexandroni?
Armored Cars Alexandroni.
So
My car today is standing in Latrun, and there's a picture of me with my whole group and my corporal on the car.
Okay.
They were the sandwich. You meant the cars on the way to Jerusalem?
Yes, yes.
That's what I was
Okay,
in.
so I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to stop for today. And tomorrow we're going to continue from this point.
As you like.
Yeah.
Depends on you.
Yeah. One thing that I just want to make sure is that what is the first unit that you are in when you arrive to Israel? Is it the Alexandroni?
Alexandroni.
Or is it Khativat Negev?
Alexandroni.
So first you're in the Alexandroni, and then
I ran away to Khativat Negev to my friends.
you ran away. Is there a story behind that of you running away, or just?
You get up and you go, and you're in Khativat Negev.
But why did you leave the Alexandroni?
Because I had more friends in Khativat Negev than Alexandroni. And not only that, Alexandroni wasn't an action unit. I was looking for action. So that's why I ran away to Khativat Negev. Khativat Negev was in action all the time. Never a dull moment. When Alexandroni, they were on standby all the time. You know what I mean? What did I go to the army for? I wanted action.
How long were you in Alexandroni for? Do you know how long you were in that Khativa for?
I was the 34th Armored Cars.
34th?
Armored Cars.
In Alexandroni?
Yeah, Alexandroni. I ran away from that and joined the Chayot Negev.
So was Chayot Negev kind of like, were they notorious? Did they have a name already for themselves? Were they like, these are the guys that got all the...
You saw the guys that all had beards, but they were real fighting men. And the Chayot Negev, you looked at them, you could see they looked like Chayot. They had beards, long stood, but they had a lot of action.
So when you get off the boat, the Palmach puts you into Alexandroni. Now Alexandroni, where is it situated exactly in the country?
In the center.
In the center, correct. So basically, but there's a lot of action going on in the center, no? There's a lot of, but you didn't see any.
Why didn't see?
You said you didn't see any action with Alexandroni.
I did. I saw with the armored cars. We went in, we shot up around Tulkarm.
Tell me about that.
I can't remember all the details, but we'd go in and shoot up and help the refugees. We had the
What refugees?
There was a whole Yemenite village there, and the Arabs attacked the Iraqis. And these retreated, and we came back with our armored cars and pushed the Arabs back. And then the refugees came back with us.
The Yemenite refugees that lived there. Do you remember the name of the moshav or village?
No.
No. So it was near Tulkarm?
Yeah.
Was it a battle or was it just a scrummage?
Depends who you're talking to.
Who you're talking to? Was it a
For
few?
one person's a battle, the other's a skirmish.
Okay.
We were looking for action. You know, you're young, you want to get in.
Is there anything, before we get to Chayot Negev, and we're going to get to Chayot Negev tomorrow, but I want to end with Khativat Alexandroni. So there's this incident of this incident at Tulkarm, What else do you remember from your time in Alexandroni? Which is your first unit in the Palmach, is that correct?
No, Alexandroni is not Palmach. Alexandroni is Alexandroni. It's a Chativa.
Okay.
Palmach was Chayot HaNegev.
Okay.
It's a different unit.
Okay.
I ran away to that.
I understand. We'll get to that. But is there anything else that you can remember about Chativat Alexandroni?
Yes.
Okay.
For instance, like Mapilim, we were running the gauntlet there with Alexandroni with the half tracks because Mapil is a kibbutz that were under fire of the Iraqis. And we'd run the gauntlet with our armor, bringing supplies across this open road of Mapil, and the Arabs used to shoot at us, and we had to bring the supplies. We were in armored cars like the one in Jerusalem, and they would shoot at us and damage our wheels at us, and we'd be running the main supplies and taking wounded out.
Wow.
So there was a battle going on there.
And where was this kibbutz?
Mapil was next to it. The kibbutz held. It's not the kibbutz. It's in front of the kibbutz. There was a road from one village to another, and we kept that road open, supplied.
Convoys.
Convoy of these armored cars, and we take the wounded out, supplies in, back and forth.
Supplies in, wounded out. Supplies in, wounded out.
That's right.
For how long? Do you remember?
Oh, a couple of days, a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks.
That, yeah.
And you were bringing supplies to where?
To the unit that was inside.
Inside where?
Near Tulkarm.
Okay.
No, I can't tell you exactly the
Okay.
place. Near Tulkarm, we were there. We had different positions. All my life, also in the 73 war, I was bringing supplies in along the Suez Canal. There I can tell you the Suez Canal and I tell you where I was. Here I can't tell you.
Okay. Anything else you remember from Alexandroni?
Thinking back.
Okay, take your time. We're almost done for today anyways, but
It'll come to me.
okay.
Let me just call. Annabelle! I need a cup of coffee. You want one?
I'm good.
I want a cup of coffee, please.
Okay, so we're gonna stop for today.
Okay.
We're gonna stop for today.
You come tomorrow?
Of course I'm gonna come tomorrow.
What time?
Hold on, let me just do something
You
here.
tell me what time.